So a few weeks ago, someone left a comment on one of my LinkedIn posts, and yes, I'm 17, yes, I have LinkedIn, it's a whole thing. Essentially, the comment said, stop trying so hard and just be a kid. That same week, a family friend reached out to me and asked me what I'm doing for university. And then I gave them an honest answer, still figuring it out. And then they looked at me like I told them I just want to be a full-time bum. So I'm too young to think about work, but I'm too old to worry about my future? I want to ask you, raise your hand if you've ever been told that you're too young for something. A job, a club, an opportunity, anything. Look around. You're not the only one. A UK youth study found that 81% of young workers feel undervalued at work, and 69% of them say that they miss out on opportunity because of their age. This is not just a feeling or Gen Z being dramatic. It's a pattern that needs to be changed. You're never the right age. You're always too young for something and too old for something at the same exact time. Too young to be heard, but too old to not have your whole life figured out. Too young to be taken seriously. But dude, you should have started networking years ago. Too ambitious, but not ambitious enough. And we spend our whole lives trying to figure out if we're on the right timeline. For ahead, behind, too early, too late. And we completely miss the point. Because most of life doesn't happen in the extremes. It happens in the gray. And that uncomfortable in-between space where nothing feels like the right time, that's not a problem to solve. That's exactly where you're supposed to be. Now, let me take you back 4 years ago. I'm 13 years old, and I just got accepted into SEEDS, this 3-year youth leadership program that everyone's talking about. I was the youngest person they ever accepted, the youngest person in the program's history. Everyone else? High school seniors, university students, and then there's me, a middle school student with the sole goal of being the best Fortnite player of all time. I remember sitting in rooms of 18, 19, 20-year-olds, people with jobs, resumes, internships. And I kept thinking, why me? Out of the hundreds of people that apply every single year, why me? Because I couldn't see in myself what they apparently saw in me. It felt like I was sitting in a room I didn't belong in. And I'm not alone in that, because studies say that up to 78% of youth have felt imposter syndrome in the last year. 78%. That's almost 8 out of 10 of us here that have sat in a room and felt like they didn't belong. %78 that have sat here in a room and felt like they didn't belong. And no one ever does anything about it. And knowing that stat, I knew I couldn't stop. I knew now was not the time to give up and to say, I'll do this later. So in my first 2 years, I worked on 2 separate initiatives. The first one was helping seniors. Seniors most likely get dementia because of the fact that no one stimulates their brain. So we decided to do a brain activity for them. We decided to collaborate with senior homes, do everything like that. We sent emails, did cold outreach, even went in person. And guess how many responses we got? That's right. 0. So then we decided to pivot. We said, okay, let's do something for people with disabilities. Let's create a place for them because they have no community. And guess how many responses we got? Drum roll, please. 0! Wow, you guys are on a roll. But in my 3rd year, something changed. I stopped waiting for permission. I stopped waiting for external validation. I stopped waiting for people to tell me yes. And I started building. And in my 3rd year, I helped build a nonprofit that changed over 200 middle school students' lives to debate, public speaking, and articulation. That's 200 students that can now go to school and not be scared of being bullied, of being scared of speaking up, and being confident in themselves. All because of a kid that felt that same pain. And then, when I stood on stage at 16 when I graduated, I gave a speech about that same journey. About being youngest in the room, failing, and figuring it out anyway. Standing on that stage, in front of my parents, my friends, and complete strangers, I didn't feel like the youngest in the room anymore. I felt like I belonged. But the hate comments kept coming. They didn't stop. Oh, stop trying so hard. Just be a kid. Go touch some grass. And the worst part, it stopped coming from strangers. Because after a while, you get used to that. It came from people I thought were close to me. People I called friends. People I'd said have lunch with. They never sent it to me directly, but I'd hear about it every single time. And while that's happening, I'm simultaneously being asked about what I'm doing for university, what I'm majoring in, what I want to do for the rest of my life. And when I don't have a perfectly polished answer for every little person, I get that look. The Fettis, you should have figured this out by now. Look. And I think we all know why. Think about what you're told growing up. Be a kid, get good grades, go to college, and then be an adult. Be a kid now, be an adult later. Like there's a magic switch that flips on your 18th birthday somehow. But that's not how life works. And sometimes those expectations really get to you. A few weeks ago, I was organizing a food drive across my school board. We reached out to 12 schools, did emails, posters, everything. On the outside, it all looked perfect. But on the inside, there was one night I'll never forget. That night, I was just sitting in my room. Door was closed. Lights were off. And I wasn't even doing anything. I was just sitting there, thinking about how all my friends were out without me. I saw on all their stories. And I wasn't even in the picture anymore. Literally. And then I'll go over to Instagram and check my brother's story, and he's posting about getting into Waterloo and top universities. I'll check my sister. She's posting about get grades, internships, everything, making it look effortless. And then there's me, in my dark room, doing something that nobody thinks is real. My family doesn't get it. My friends don't get it. And some nights, I should scratch that, most nights, even I don't get it. And look, I came to Canada when I was 10. I was an outsider. I didn't speak any English. I didn't know the culture. I didn't know anything here. So when I finally made some friends, and then I lost it all, I'd already been in that position. And I felt like I was right back there. So I went to my mom. I told my mom I want to quit. I want to just stop all the projects and just go back to being a kid. I want to go back to the fetish that had more fun. And then she looked at me and told me something I'll never forget. Because her voice was so hopeful yet disappointed. She said, Fettis, is that what you actually want? And I didn't know what to say, because if I said yes, I'll be lying. But if I said no, then I would actually have to keep going. So I kept going. Not because I believed in myself, I didn't. But because the idea of proving every single person right, the idea of proving everyone who saw a kid playing pretend, that was way worse than the loneliness. And after weeks and weeks of planning, we finally had the food drive. But 2 days before the food drive was supposed to launch, 8 out of the 12 schools pulled out because of some legal issues no one knew about. But what can we do at that point? We ran the food drive. And by the end of the food drive, we had collected over $5,000 worth of food. Families were getting fed. People were going to have dinner that day. And especially in a country where 1 in 3 kids experience food insecurity, that matters. And when I went to distribute the food, one family said to me something that I'll never forget. They said, "You don't realize how many people this is going to help." And for the first time in a really long time, I felt like I actually accomplished something. But then my co-organizer asks, is this a success or a failure? And I didn't know what to say, because on one hand, people were getting fed, families were going to have dinner that day. But on the other hand, we could have had 3 times that amount of impact. We could have had more food, more families could have been fed. So are we celebrating what we did, or disappointed by what we couldn't do? And that question stuck with me, because we're so obsessed with putting everything into boxes. Success or failure, right time or right age, too young or too old. But most of life doesn't fit into boxes. Most of life happens in that gray that we're taught to avoid. So why do we do this? Why are we so obsessed with right times and right ages? Because it's comfortable. It's safe. If there's the right time, then you have an excuse to wait. Oh, Pettis, I'll start that business when I'm older. Oh, I'll learn that skill when I have more time. Oh, I'll do that when I'm ready. You will never feel ready. And while you're waiting, opportunities pass. People who started too early are now 10 steps ahead of you. And the people telling you to wait, they're often not the ones who took risks. They're not the ones you look up to. Think about any successful person you look up to. Any person. They did not wait until the right time to start their company or do whatever they do. Mark Zuckerberg started Facebook at 19. It's now worth $1.5 trillion. Bill Gates started Microsoft at 16. $2.9 trillion. Two youth, $4.4 trillion combined. They were too unqualified, too inexperienced, too everything. And they did it anyway. Because if you wait until you're ready, you'll be waiting forever. Every single thing I started was before I was ready. The LinkedIn post, the nonprofit, the food drive, everything. But those are the things that lasted. Those are the echoes. Because echoes don't start when you're ready. They start when you're not. And I get it. It's scary. It's uncomfortable to do things before you're ready. But you know what's scarier? Looking back 5 years from now and realizing you spent your whole life waiting for permission that was never going to come. You know, someone once told me to stop trying so hard and just be a kid. I didn't listen to them. And I'm standing here on stage because of that. So the next time someone tells you to do anything, which they will, I want you to remember this moment. I want you to remember that you just sat in a room full of people that have experienced the same feeling, and I want you to do it anyway. Thank you.